So, may I preach this morning in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. So, guys, I was thinking this morning that how many times when you go to a store has your parent ever told you, don't touch anything? Anybody ever get that speech? Yeah. The speech for me was keep your hands in your pockets and you won't get in trouble. Well, I'd like to say this one actually is not about me. It's about a young man that I met who was walking in a department store and he did not follow that rule. He walked up, he touched the mannequin. You know, one of those really nice, big, tall mannequins that are dressed. And I guess he just had terrible luck because the thing just fell apart. It just collapsed in a heap of body parts on the floor. And it made a loud sound with all the plastic and wood. And so as he's standing there in horror, as he's looking at all these parts of the mannequin, he starts to almost cry. He's a young kid, about 6 or 7 years old. And this person comes up and watches him trying to put the mannequin back together. But he doesn't know how. So he's putting like the end of a foot in the head. He's putting like a leg onto the neck. And he just does not know what to do. And so he just breaks down and starts to cry. One of the people who works there says, why are you crying? He says, because this thing fell apart and it's my fault and I can't put it back together. And he says, it's okay. I'm the one who puts these things together and dresses the mannequins. I'll put it together. Let's do it. And so the man puts the stand down and he starts to connect the legs and the torso and the arms and even poses the guy in a different way and puts the clothes back on. He says, see, of course you couldn't put it together. You weren't the one who put it together in the first place. You didn't know how to do it. And the young man stopped crying, and the young man and the guy who put it together agreed not to tell mom. And he went on his way. So in the Old Testament reading that you heard this morning, Jesus, it's not that. In the Old Testament reading, Ezekiel is talking about, and God says, look at this huge valley of bones. So just imagine like an entire field full of just dry bones everywhere, just nothing but skeletons. And God asks Ezekiel, do you think these things could ever be alive? And he says, well, that's not for me to know. I mean, I don't put people back together. You're the powerful one, God, that's up to you. And he says, well, you know what? Here's my power of prophecy. Talk to them and make them come back together. So Ezekiel does that. And if you can imagine the sound of all those bones and everything clattering together, worse than hell, all of a sudden coming together, it would have been just a deafening noise. And then they're all standing there as flesh and bone and sinew, and they're all there, but they're not alive. And so God says, can these people breathe and have life again? And he says, Ezekiel says again, like, you know more than I do, that's not my department. And he says, do it again, I'm giving you the power. And so the breath of God, so take a breath, that breath right there, the same breath, he prophesies again, and the breath comes back into them, and this entire field of people is alive. And God says, this is the people of Israel who think that they're done, they're finished, they're dead. They'll never be joyful or worship me again, but I'm going to take care of them. And the reason that we know that God can do that is because God was the one who put those people together in the first place. See, he built us, so he kind of has the blueprints when we fall apart to put us together again. And that's the main lesson. There's going to be times in our life when we just fall apart. No, I'm not saying like literally an arm or leg is going to fall off of you, so please don't be afraid of that. That usually doesn't happen. Okay? Let your head fall off. Now, but we are going to sometimes feel like we're falling apart. We get disappointed in life. Somebody says something new to us. Something doesn't turn out the way that we want. Maybe we really, really wanted something to succeed, and it didn't. Or we lose somebody we love. We just feel like we've fallen apart. But in that moment, God says, it's okay. I'm going to be with you here, and I'm going to put you back together because I was the one that built you in the first place. So the gospel reading today, Jesus hears that his friend Lazarus is sick. And the strange thing is that he stays where he's at, and he doesn't go see him. Because I think he knows that people need to be reminded that God has the power over life and death. So when he goes, and Lazarus is in the tomb 4 days, do you remember what his sister said? When he said, turn the stone open, she was like, are you sure you want to do that? Because there might be a stench. So he'd been dead for 4 days, and people tend not to smell very good after 4 days in the tomb. And so he says to God, his Father, I'm glad that these people here can see and know what I'm about to do. And he calls Lazarus out. Now, why did he use his name? There's no objection. Because if he had just said, come out, everybody would have come out of the tomb. So he says, Lazarus by name, you come out. And Lazarus comes out. So here's the question that I want you guys to think about as we get towards this last week of Lent into Easter. If God can put people back together, and if Jesus can bring people back from the dead, is there anything that Jesus can't do? No. There's nothing that Jesus can't do. So if we ever think that our problem is too big, if we ever think that the thing that we're trying to talk to God about is either too big or too small, he still says, listen, tell me, and I will put you back together. So now here's the challenge that I want you guys to think about. There are people that you're going to meet. Maybe some of them don't have the faith in Jesus. Maybe they need to hear this message that God can put you back together. So the next time you see somebody hurt, or sad, or depressed, or lonely, you can tell them. You can tell them no matter what it is, God can put you back together. And if you like, we can pray together right now. So let's all say a prayer together. Dear God, we thank you that you have reminded us day in and day out, moment after moment, that in the times that we fall apart, you will put us back together. It doesn't matter if it's our fault or not, if we have made a mistake or not, you are still there. And we ask you, Lord, to help us to remember that your Son, Jesus Christ, came and lived among us, died and rose from the dead, so that we might never feel that we are broken and fallen apart ever again. Amen. Amen.